I guess it's the equivalent of ascending Everest. I think it's probably harder. The Bob Graham Round was established in 1932 by a guest house owner called Bob Graham. And Bob Graham and his pals sat down in the pub and wondered how many peaks they could get done in 24 hours. Being the age of 42, he decided to kind of set the new round at 42 peaks, and there the challenge was born. I think there'd been previous kind of fell challenges that were around, but then that was established as being the Lakeland Challenge. The total ascent over those 42 peaks is 27,000 feet, and the round itself is 66 miles, although it can vary depending on your route and very drastically if you get lost, which is quite common. The constant up and the constant down are just absolutely hammering. Your legs just get absolutely trashed on the descents. I think only 1 in 3 that attempt the round make it, so the odds are kind of stacked against you a little bit. And the Bob Graham Round has become, according to the website, I love this, has become the testing ground for the supremely fit. And I just find that bizarre to kind of put myself in that kind of category. Well, hopefully I'll be in that category. If you've heard me try my hardest to run up a hill, then I sound like a steam train. I'm not a fantastic runner really, perhaps just a bit more stubborn than most. I think I look at a lot of challenges, or the ones that I'm inspired by. I always ask myself, could I do that? What am I capable of? And when this one came along and I helped support a friend on his round, I asked exactly the same question. I wonder if I could get round in 24 hours or less. And I guess it's just curiosity really that kind of drives me, and just trying to push my boundaries and see where my limits are. So those are kind of strong drivers for a lot of the things that I do in my working life and most parts of my life. Running is a sort of natural outlet for that. It just seems to make sense. It feels like I'm growing, really. Yeah, it feels like I'm just starting at 40 years old. Better late than never. The Bob Graham Round means different things to different people, I expect. For some, it's quite simply just a time trial challenge to achieve those 42 peaks in less than 24 hours, and that's all they think about. For me, I think it was very different. The Bob Graham Round was something I'd heard about, and I was aware of it, but hadn't appreciated it until I supported a friend of mine last year. And in that respect, I think it was almost paid forward. I saw a group of mates hanging out in the hills, really pushing themselves, and all the camaraderie that goes with that, and the sense of satisfaction that goes with that. That's what I saw, and that's what the Bob Graham means to me, really. And at that point, I was inspired to do it myself, to get all my friends together and have some fun in the hills. Going out for the day with a few friends and spending 6 hours in the hills and just getting back satisfied and kind of empty is just a really nice feeling. Some of my best friends have been the ones that I've been out running with and sort of shared a moment of just probably pain, I expect, running up a big hill somewhere, but ultimately just relief and a satisfying feeling at the end. And that sort of shared sensation with friends kind of brings you together a little bit, I think. Shared experience. The Bob Graham Round, you need to have a support crew, and I don't think I could ask for a better one. Probably the biggest supporter is my wife. Emma is just, she's just an incredible athlete herself, So quite inspiring in that respect, but also just really, really encouraging and supportive when things haven't gone right. And probably, my best training partner and my best friend. She joins me out on all the runs. I think she would probably say that she's enjoyed half of them. I remember her saying on the last time we went out into the lakes, I'm a bit tired of feeling scared and cold. But her horizons have grown quite a bit, and since we've been running long distances, and her confidence has grown as well. So she'll be supporting on the day and running all of the logistics and making sure people are in the right place at the right time. And without her, I couldn't do what I'm about to try and do. The rest of the team are just a fantastic group of friends. Bringing all these people together, it's just a really, really good experience. There's a couple of these guys in particular where you wouldn't have to tell them how long you were going running for. You just have to say, I'm going running on the lakes, do you want to come? And they would be like, yeah, let's go. It could be 10 miles, it could be 50 miles. It wouldn't matter to them. And having people like that is just a kind of a source of inspiration, really. A lot of these guys have done the Bob Graham before, they've done long distance racing, they've done all kinds of things. So yeah, they are a source of inspiration as well as a good source of support on the day as well. I run because it's my escape. It's how I unwind and relax, even when sometimes it probably looks like the least relaxing thing you could do. It's completely consuming, that sort of exertion and that focus. And I think that's where, whatever you're doing, people tend to find that they can relax. It's the old adage, a change is better than a rest. Well, a change from teaching school kids all day would be running up a hill, and that's certainly where I feel rested. It's where I decompress. It's where I completely focus on nothing but the challenge of getting up a hill, enjoying that view, and that's where I go for, ironically, strangely, that's where I go for some peace and quiet. The environment has a lot to do with it. So I think time slips by so fast when you're trail running or fell running, because there's just so much to look at. It's just a beautiful place to be. Winter, raining, summer, whatever. Just love being in the hills. The training has been interesting, and in preparation for the Bob Graham round, I think it's taught me a lot about how I prefer to train. I could descend fairly confidently, but hill climbing was kind of something I needed to be better at. And so I kind of looked at hill climbing and think, what do I need for that? Well, I kind of need strong legs and good lungs. So training in the week had to be sort of incorporate a lot of strength and conditioning to kind of prepare myself for that. And that was, although that part of training wasn't very much fun, it really, really quickly sort of helped me feel more comfortable in the hills, and I saw the benefit very quickly and realised I need to keep doing more of that. Training has evolved into something fun. It really didn't feel like I was training when I was heading out to the lakes every couple of weeks and spending all day Saturday and all day Sunday just running in the hills. And I just found myself just getting fitter and just able to tolerate the sort of extreme sort of weather that you get. The recce's were really, really challenging, particularly training through the winter. There's lots of wow moments or scary moments, there's plenty of those. Had some horrendous failed attempts, particularly on leg 3, trying to get from Dunmail Raise over to Wasdale on a very, very wintry Saturday. And when the cloud came down and the snow was up to my knees, and I felt a little bit lost, I sort of had to concede and turn around and just head back the quickest way I could back to civilization. But it didn't put me off. I think it was a very character building situation. There have been many others like that. I'm not sure if I'm gonna make it or not on the Bob Graham round. There's so much can happen. Navigation could go wrong, the weather could come down. There's lots of really, really fit runners that have not made it. And equally, there are lots of really sort of average runners that have. And I'm one of those average runners. I'm not a great runner by any stretch. I just seem to, only based on evidence from my other ultra marathons, I just seem to have a bit of stubbornness that kind of carries me through. So when things get bad, I can just kind of tough it out a little bit, and that really helps. I'm confident I'm fit enough, but I think there are so many other factors that are involved that are out of my control. And that's the beauty of the Bob Graham round. That's the beauty of running in the Lake District. It can just throw anything at you. The mountain has the last word. I think short of my leg falling off, I'll complete the round. If I'm over time, I'll still get round and finish it, and do my friends and everyone the honour of completing it, not bailing halfway around. It'll just mean that we are commiserating a little bit in the pub afterwards, but hey, there's always another day. Well, I'd never started a race at 10 o'clock at night before, so that was interesting. Once we'd pulled up in Keswick and I started to walk into town and towards the hall, and I knew there was going to be a whole group of my friends just waiting there to see me off. I felt a little bit of pressure to start with to kind of perform, because everyone is kind of watching me, but they're my best friends. There wasn't one of them that didn't say, that we're here for you, whatever happens. And that was just really humbling. It was great having Ricky there. It added a little bit extra to something that was already very special to a lot of people there, and to me as well. The guys that were running with me and helping me out and have been encouraging me all through training, they've been felt running for years. They know how good Ricky is, and they respect him a lot. And I'm a bit of a newbie. I've only been doing it for a couple of years at most. I was a bit nervous, really, a bit starstruck to start with, because I knew who he was, and I couldn't believe that he'd turned up to help a complete stranger on the Bob Graham. But then, as I've discovered, while being on this journey, that's kind of what the Bob Graham is about, and you just got to help your friends out, and one of the reasons why I did it anyway.
The Bob Graham, it's a bit of a tradition, it's a legacy, and there was people on my Bob Graham who helped out, and I didn't particularly know that well. But it's just the way it is with the Bob Graham. There's always people willing to help. It's just because they love the sport, and they've been in that position before, and they want to give something back, I guess.
Well, I wasn't sure what I was going to expect from the start. There's no race official. There's no great big foghorn that's being sounded. It's just you on a stopwatch. So I kind of expected just to kind of switch my watch on and away we go. And then all of a sudden, Palomine just chimes in with a countdown, and that was fantastic.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And away we went. Yeah, and there was me, Lee and Ricky set off on leg one, just cruising out of town, just cantering at a nice pace, just having a good chat. And I could tell that those guys have both supported other people before. I could tell that they were trying to calm me down and keep me slow to start with. Well, we had just the most incredible weather for 90% of the round. I couldn't ask for any better. I was prepared for the worst, and I got pretty much the best, so no complaints there at all. And as we set off up Skiddaw on leg one, the sun set and the sky just went dark blue and purple, and then you get the nice sunset colours, and we saw the lights on Keswick just before we make that turn after Jenkins Hill, and it was just fantastic. It was kind of surreal. I was full of energy and excitement, so I was kind of skipping along, not feeling fatigued at all for the first time ever going up Skiddaw. Yeah, it was great. It was so light, we didn't put our head torches on for pretty much till we hit the summit, when we kind of needed to see where we were going after that point. But the support from Ricky and Lee was just unbelievable. I mean, I've supported before on Bob Graham, but compared to what they were doing for me, I was basically a passenger. Those guys were basically sticking water bottles in my hands and like running ahead to get gates and all that kind of stuff. And every 20-30 minutes I'd find a bit of food put in my hand or something like that as well. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to navigate for the first time being in the hills. I could just follow feet and enjoy the view. Blencathra was great. We found probably for the first time, and I've recorded it twice, and on the round itself managed to find the correct line up Blencathra for the first time. I mean, that's thanks to Ricky's experience, really. And it was just a real sort of slow trudge up to Blencathra. We asked Ricky about Hall's Fell. That was quite funny. He'd kind of indicated that he'd never been down it the same way twice. So, and he asked me if I wanted to lead down Horse Fell. And I was like, no, actually, Ricky, you lead off. I think you probably know it better than I do.
We got Tony round the leg in about I think it was 3:20 or something like that, which is, you know, that's pretty quick, having run at 10 o'clock at night in the dark. You know, that set him up for the rest of the round perfectly. It's been a while since I've been round there, but it was nice to take Tony round and get him round in one piece. But you know, Tony was full of beans, and you know, he was pretty happy, and he was running comfortably, and you know, it was just yeah, it was a nice sort of atmosphere.
So we arrived in Threlkeld a bit ahead of schedule, probably about 15 minutes ahead of what I planned to. But it still felt pretty good. Met up with John and Jason, who were going to lead off on leg 2. But as I set off on leg 2, it kind of became apparent that I was feeling a little bit off. Don't know what it was, whether it was just because I'd just come tanking off a massive, great big hill and then tried to get some food down and then set off again. Perhaps the pace of it had kind of taken its toll a little bit, and the food hadn't really settled that well, but I pretty much felt sick 15-20 minutes into leg 2. I mean, what a leg that was. I mean, leg two again, the weather was absolutely perfect. There was barely any wind. It didn't even feel like it. It really got that dark. And although my pace was kind of slowed a little bit because I was just feeling a little bit nauseous, we were able to kind of maintain a pretty steady pace, and watching the sunrise steadily over, you know, a couple of hours was just incredible. The colours of the sky were just amazing. And then, yeah, coming up over Lowerman, we could hear the buzz of the drone up on Helvellyn, and it was nice to see a friendly face up on top of the hill there, just for a few moments before we skipped on by. Fairfield just feels like a massive insult to the round. I mean, it's just an out and back up a huge, great big hill. I just knew we were going to get a perfect sunrise up there, and that's really when the sun lifted and everything was just bright orange. It was fantastic. So that kind of cheers you up a little bit. Would have been a totally different story if it had been throwing it down with rain. I'd probably call it day right there and then. By the time I got down to Dunmail Raise, I kind of decided that I needed to have a proper sort of 10-minute break and sit down and just kind of collect myself, because I was still feeling a little bit kind of nauseous and not quite myself. And I think I'd lost 15 minutes on leg 2 as well, so the net output of that was I was kind of back on schedule, but the time I'd gained on leg 1 had gone, but that was fine. And I think the hardest thing was to stop being obsessed with time, which certainly later on was a bit of an issue, which had to be corrected on quite a lot. I'd always had a bit of a hang-up about leg 3. When I've tried to recce it on 2 or 3 occasions, it's never quite gone right. So I've never kind of put that leg together all in one go. And that was in the back of my mind, because I'd had a couple of failed attempts in the winter. My navigation had kind of let me down and I had to sort of backtrack. On other occasions where the weather was just appalling, that it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, so I was kind of worried about it a little bit. But the weather not being an issue at all, and picking up 3 really experienced runners at that stage filled me with confidence. We'd got Lee Grant, Phil Smith and Ian Mulvey on that leg, and those guys were just fantastic. And again, they were just running around me basically, just making sure there was food in my hand and I had water every 20 minutes or 30 minutes or so. I didn't have to lift a finger with navigation. Those guys just knew all the best lines up to the summits, and I could just follow feet. So to hit the summit, the last summit on leg 3 it felt great, because then it was just a nice descent on sore knees down to the car park. The sickness feeling I'd had just kind of never really left. but I was aware that you have to keep eating. A friend of mine described the Bob Graham as being an eating competition as well as a running competition. You got to eat on the clock to keep yourself fueled up because you'll pay for it later. So I had to force food down, and I was just kind of working out of all the kind of rations that we had with us, what was going to go down the easiest. Because towards the end of leg 3, I was just feeling, I think maybe the nausea was starting to dissipate, but it was just replaced with fatigue, which is going to happen at that point. And as we came down from Scafell down to the car park, I was just feeling a little bit ropey and starting to feel just a little bit tired. My knees were just a bit sore as well from descending. So I rolled in to meet Emma down at the car park there, and I think she was just a little bit kind of shocked with how I was looking. But one of the things I was asking the guys towards the end of leg 3 when I was starting to feel like this, I kept saying, is this normal? Is this how you were when you were on yours? And they were saying, yep, we were exactly the same. I felt like giving up when I arrived at Wasdale. Wasdale is the Bob Graham graveyard. I've heard it called that before, and now I understand why. The lads gave me some chat because I was having some pretty dark thoughts when I was sat there in a camp chair in the car park, just about the rest of the round and making it on time. And for some reason, I was probably just really, really tired, but I just became obsessed with time and thinking to myself, I'm not going to make it. It's going to be really, really tight. And the lads just, whenever I kind of said that, the lads just kind of chimed in and had to remind me that it was going to be tight for my original 22-hour schedule, but I was going to make it within the 24, should I not fall over or do anything stupid. And I often do learn something about myself on the ultra races that I do. That is that it can very quickly change. It's amazing how quick you can turn that around, and it might be the simplest thing as someone giving you a pat on the back or putting a cup of tea in your hand or saying, come on pal, let's get going. And that's all it takes, and away you go. Leg 4 was much better than I'd kind of expected it to be after I'd felt pretty awful coming into Wasdale. I was a bit kind of confused but feeling better, and as leg 4 progressed I kind of picked up a bit of speed again and started to feel good. There's a lot of climbing on leg 4. It's not very long distance wise, but there's just a lot of steep climbing and not very many runnable sections until you get off Great Gable, where you can pick up some pace again before a final kind of little incline before you descend into Honister. Coming over the crest of Grey Knott and looking down on Honister Pass at the car park, and I could already see Emma and everyone waiting there. It would just put a big smile on my face. I kind of picked up the pace a bit and started descending at speed, and I'd forgotten about the pain in my knees that had kind of gone. And yeah, just met everyone down there, and I was surprised because I'd only planned to meet Emma and the support runners, Richard and Charlotte, but everyone else had decided to rock up and see how I was doing. So probably seeing me at my worst at that stage. Leg 5 was hard, really, really hard. There's no other word to describe it. You can get big highs and lows on any sort of ultra distance event, and they can actually come and go quite frequently as well. So as quick as I'd been feeling great on leg 4, I'd kind of quickly felt bad again on leg 5. And I think the final test came along when the heavens opened and we just got an absolute downpour for about 30 or 40 minutes. We'd been warm and really, really hot, really. We'd been running in t-shirts and shorts for the whole thing. And this just took every ounce of heat that I had in me just out of me completely. All my muscles, my legs and my arms just started to cramp up with the cold wind and the rain. So it just became really, really difficult, and Emma noticed this straight away and basically just tucked in right in front of me, and I was just drafting behind her, following her feet while the rain came down. It was like that all the way to the top of Robinson, and then the rain, as quick as it started, just stopped, and a bit of sun came out again, and yeah, my mood picked up. Little things like that can just change your mood. So the fact the rain stopped and the sun came out, I was just feeling so much better. We had a good gang of us on leg 5. There was just great banter, lots of chat going on. When we made the sort of final kind of steep kind of ski slope descent down to the path that runs through the valley. There was just a lot of good chat, and we were kind of speed marching, run walk basically. We'd run for a bit, walk for a bit, run for a bit, and that was working fairly well. But yeah, it was that, I think that group of people, even though they weren't necessarily chatting to me, they were chatting around me, and it all kind of helped. I lost a bit of time on leg 5. I think probably a lot of people do. And then when we hit the road section, I was kind of glad to be on ground that wasn't moving under my feet and slippy or rocky. So it was nice to sort of pick up and get some pace again. And I think there's only 3 or 4 miles or something like that into town from there. It's amazing how the last sort of few hundred metres can inspire you into a bit of a quick jog. As I made the last turn onto the high street, which must only be like 300-400 metres to go, sort of found a new lease of life. It's like when you see the finish line. It was a really good experience. It's one I'll never forget, because it was just the ending of 8 or 9 months of preparation for it, and it was the perfect day. It was perfect people. Yeah, I think the clap and applause that I got when I arrived was as much them as it was me. It was a great feeling to finish. I think the nicest thing finishing wasn't how I felt, it was just that everyone was stood around me and sort of gave everyone a big hug, and you could see that they'd had just a really good experience themselves and had just enjoyed running in the hills. That meant a lot more to me than just finishing the round in under 24 hours.